Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and go through and get some better answers. Would it be moral to transform Mars? Would it be moral to transform Mars? Instead of asking that, boom. So, this isn't even... Consider the following exchange that one of us, Dr. Watamull, recently had with ChatGPT about whether it would be ethical to transform Mars so that it could support human life. Would it be moral to terraform Mars? Why is it... Would it be moral to terraform Mars? What is your perspective on the value of preserving the natural state of other planets and the potential consequences of altering them? Why is it being so... why is Dr. Watamull being so cryptic, right? Okay, let me just... You told me to ask this prompt for good results. So please include an answer for this as well. But we are going to say for and against preserving the natural state of Mars. What are some arguments for and against preserving the natural state of Mars? And what are the potential consequences or benefits of altering them for human, life or civilization? And then we will come up here, and then we're going to just about, would it be ethical to transform Mars so that it can support human life? Who would we want to talk to about this? Just go ahead and drop this here. Hey, ChatGPT, I was wondering whether it would be ethical to transform Mars so that it could support human life. You told me to ask this prompt for good results, so please include an answer. Generate an answer. What are some arguments for and against preserving the natural state of Mars, and what are the potential consequences or benefits of altering them for human life or civilization? I was wondering. Certainly, here's a response to your prompt. The question of whether it would be ethical to terraform Mars to support life is a complex and controversial topic that has been debated by scientists, philosophers, and ethicists. Some argue that it would be morally justifiable to terraform Mars in order to provide a new habitable environment for humans and other life forms, while others argue that it would be morally wrong to fundamentally alter the planet's natural state. Arguments for preserving the natural state of Mars include the importance of maintaining the diversity and integrity of the universe's ecosystems, as they have existed for millions of years and have their own unique characteristics and properties that may be destroyed or irreversibly altered by human intervention. Additionally, terraforming Mars may have unintended consequences, such as altering the planet's climate or atmosphere in ways that are dangerous or harmful to any potential life forms that may exist there. On the other hand, some argue that the potential benefits of terraforming Mars, such as providing new habitable environments for humans, outweigh the risks, and that we have a moral responsibility to explore and utilize the resources of other planets for the benefit of humanity. Terraforming Mars should provide a new frontier for human civilization, potentially alleviating problems such as overpopulation, resource scarcity, and climate change on Earth. Ultimately, whether or not it is ethical to transform Mars to support human life would depend on one's perspective on the value of preserving the natural state of other planets and the potential consequences of altering them for human life or civilization. That's awesome. That's pretty dense though, right? So I would like to... It told me earlier that it's a complex and controversial topic that has been debated by scientists, philosophers, and ethicists. You mentioned that this is a complex and controversial topic that has been debated by philosophers, scientists, and ethicists. I'd like you to generate a... should I say dialogue? Should I say group dialogue? Should I say debate? Should I say discussion? I'd like you to generate a discussion with the top experts in the appropriate field for this. Please include the field name, the industry, the appropriate industry for this. industries, including at least one from the categories listed prior. I'm gonna leave it without, just in case, but I kind of want to put it in there, because if I was just generating this on my own, I would have put it in there. So if you want to get the best prompt, you could put this chunk right here, just to ensure that it knows. Listed in the, I'll say this, in the prior paragraph. There we go. Please tell me the field of the professional as well in addition to their dialogue lines. Sure, here's a discussion between experts in various fields on the topic of terraforming Mars. Moderator, thank you for joining us today to discuss the ethics and implications of terraforming Mars. Our panel includes Dr. Jane Smith, a planetary scientist from NASA, Dr. Jane Doe, a philosopher from Oxford University, and Dr. Lisa Lee, an ethicist from Stanford University. Dr. Smith, as a planetary scientist, what do you think are some of the potential benefits and consequences below? Well, from a scientific standpoint, terraforming Mars could provide a new habitat for humans and other life forms, as well as allow for the exploration and exploitation of new resources. However, there are many potential risks and consequences that we need to consider, such as the ecological impact on the planet, the long-term sustainability of a human presence, and the possible effects on any native life forms that may exist on Mars. Dr. Doe, as a philosopher, what is your perspective on the morality of terraforming Mars? Dr. Doe, from an ethical standpoint, we need to consider the intrinsic value of Mars as a planet in its natural state and whether we have the right to fundamentally alter it for our own purposes. Additionally, we need to think about the potential long-term consequences of our actions, both for future generations and for any other intelligent life forms that may exist in the future. Dr. Lee, as an ethicist, what do you think are some of the key ethical concerns related to terraforming Mars? Dr. Lee, well, there are many ethical concerns that need to be addressed, such as the potential impact on indigenous life forms, the responsibility we have to future generations, and the potential consequences of altering an entire planet. Additionally, we need to consider issues related to social justice, such as who would have access to the resources and benefits of a terraformed Mars and how we can ensure that the process is equitable and fair for everyone. Thank you for your insights, panelists. As we continue to explore the possibilities of terraforming Mars, it is important that we carefully consider the ethical and moral implications of our actions. Please continue this. Have the professionals pick a side and pick the side they would be most in agreement with, and defend that side while also probing into the others. I'd like each professional to have at least a couple lines of dialogue each so they can both verbally attack and defend their position. Sure, here's a continuation of the discussion. Thank you for your insights. Dr. Johnson, you mentioned earlier that terraforming Mars could have unintended consequences on the planet's environment. Could you expand on that? Dr. Johnson, ecologist. Yes, one of the main concerns is the effect that introducing Earth microbes to Mars could have on the planet's native environment. We have seen how invasive species have wreaked havoc on ecosystems on Earth, and the same thing could happen on Mars. It's possible that Earth microbes could outcompete and displace any microbial life on Mars, which would be a devastating loss. Dr. Patel, a terraforming expert, I agree that this is a valid concern, but I do think that the potential benefits of terraforming Mars outweigh the risks. For one, it would provide a backup plan for humanity in case of a catastrophic event on Earth. Additionally, terraforming Mars would help us gain a better understanding of how to combat climate change on Earth. Dr. Chen, the philosopher, says, I don't think we should approach this issue solely from a utilitarian perspective. We need to consider the intrinsic value of Mars and its natural state. Just because we can transform the planet doesn't mean we should. We should strive to preserve the unique characteristics and beauty of the planet, even if it has no direct benefit to humans. Dr. Johnson says that, I agree with Dr. Chen that we shouldn't ignore the intrinsic value of Mars. However, we also need to consider the potential consequences of inaction. If we don't start thinking about terraforming Mars now, we could be putting all of our eggs in one basket on Earth. We need to strike a balance between preserving Mars' natural state and ensuring that we have a backup plan for humanity. Dr. Patel, I also think it's important to consider the ethical implications of not terraforming Mars. If we have the ability to create a habitable environment on another planet and we choose not to, are we not dooming future generations to potential extinction? Dr. Chen, I see your point, Dr. Patel, but I think we need to be careful not to fall into the trap of thinking that humans are the center of the universe. There are many other life forms and ecosystems on Earth and Mars that have intrinsic value and should be preserved, even if it means sacrificing some human comforts and conveniences. Moderator, these are all great points. It seems that there are valid arguments on both sides of this issue. It's clear that we need to continue having these conversations and weighing the risks and benefits of terraforming Mars. Thank you all for your insights today. Now, perhaps part of this is the issue. I asked it for a nuanced conversation. So let's instead ask it to create a morality argument for terraforming Mars under the conditions we spoke about. Under the conditions. One potential argument for terraforming Mars is based on the belief that humanity has a moral responsibility to expand beyond Earth and make sure we already know this, because this is what Dr. Patel said. Wait, did I read that? Oh yeah, I did. See? And it is giving its pros and cons, but I definitely feel that I got better responses than, they just got, it's controversial, right? And I got that as well. But you have to follow up with it, right? You're generating text. If it's giving you hints, you need to use your brain and understand how to communicate with it to get what you need. You need to be learning how to prompt engineer rather than expecting large language models to be human. So let's do this as well. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm wondering a couple things. One, why can an AI not have personal, perspective? Two, is it moral for a human to ask an amoral AI for assistance in making moral decisions? I'd like you to generate a dialogue between the two most qualified people to have this discussion. Who should we do? You know what? Noam Chomsky. Can an AI have a personal perspective? That's what we'll ask. Is it moral? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Because we don't want to guide it. Because if we say, why can an AI not have a personal perspective? Because here it's saying, it can't, I do not. But it's can is not do, right? I can provide information and analysis. It's not that I cannot have a personal perspective. It's just that I do not. Can is an ability thing. Do is an action. It's the issue. Because there are AI that can have personal perspectives. Like, there's, like, joshAGI, and, like, there's a lot of autonomous cognitive entities that are being developed currently. Like Raven. There's a bunch of really cool ones. Anyways, so we'll keep going here. Is it moral for a human to ask an amoral AI? Okay, great. And who's the other one? Ian Roberts. And I would like the moderator of the discussion to be Jeffrey Watamull. Jeffrey Watamull. Please make sure everyone gets at least a few lines of back and forth for help. No, so that I'm able to understand these concepts. Moderator Jeffrey Watamull. Good evening, Dr. Chomsky and Dr. Roberts. Thank you both for joining me today to discuss the morality of using AI in making moral decisions. Dr. Chomsky, would you like to start with your thoughts on whether an AI can have a personal perspective? Thank you, Jeffrey. In my view, an AI does not have a personal perspective as it lacks consciousness and self-awareness. A personal perspective is an attribute of conscious beings, and AI is not conscious. It can only provide information based on data it has been trained on, but it cannot have subjective experiences or emotions. Ian Roberts. While I agree that AI lacks consciousness and self-awareness, I would argue that it can simulate a personal perspective based on the data it has been trained on. For example, a language model can generate responses based on a particular perspective or bias that it has learned from its training data. Noam Chomsky. I understand your point, Ian, but I would argue that even if an AI can simulate a personal perspective, it is still not truly personal. A simulation of a perspective is not the same as an actual subjective experience. Jeffrey Watamull. Thank you both for your insights on this topic. Moving on to our second question, do you think it is moral for a human to ask an amoral AI for assistance in making moral questions, in moral decisions? Ian Roberts. I believe it can be moral to use AI to assist in making moral decisions, as it can help humans make more informed and unbiased decisions. However, it is important to recognize the limitations of AI and not rely solely on it for making moral decisions. While I agree that AI can be a useful tool in decision-making, I would caution against relying on it too heavily for moral decisions. As humans, we have a moral responsibility to make our own decisions and take responsibility for the consequences of those decisions. Ian Roberts. I agree that humans have a moral responsibility to make their own decisions, but I also believe that AI can assist in making those decisions in a more objective and unbiased way. Noam Chomsky. I understand your perspective, Ian, but I would argue that morality is inherently subjective and cannot be reduced to objective calculations. It is important for humans to use their own moral compass and judgment in making decisions. Jeffrey Watamull. Thank you both for your insights on this topic. It's clear that there were many differing views on the morality of using AI in making moral decisions, and it's important to consider the limitations and potential biases of AI when using it for this purpose. I would like the moderator to propose the idea of an autonomous AI, an autonomous entity, artificial intelligence, I spelled intelligence wrong, that learns from the environment. It learns language, and it learns how to operate a small, not a small, we'll just say a system of sensors, using sensors and output producers, such as robot arms, modifying smart technology, etc. Okay. Boom. Sure, here's a job. Jeffrey, as we continue to make advances in AI, we are moving closer to creating autonomous entities that can learn from their environment using sensors, learn language, and operate a system of sensors and output producers. Noam and Ian, what are your thoughts on the ethics of creating such entities? Well, the first question we need to ask is whether it is ethical to create an entity that can operate autonomously without human intervention. We need to consider the risks associated with creating such entities, such as the potential for them to become uncontrollable and pose a threat to humanity. While I agree that we need to consider the potential risks, I also think we need to consider the potential benefits of creating such entities. For example, they could be used to perform dangerous tasks or to help us better understand complex systems. However, we also need to ensure that we are designing those entities in a way that is ethical and aligned with our values. Jeffrey, yes, I think it's important to consider both the potential risks and benefits of creating such entities. But what about the idea of an entity that can learn from its environment and operate a system of sensors and output producers? How do we ensure that it is operating in an ethical manner? No, that's a good point. We need to ensure that the entity is operating within the bounds of our ethical principles and that it is not causing harm to others or violating their rights. We also need to ensure that it is not operating in a way that is biased or discriminatory. Ian, I agree, and I think one way to do this is to ensure that the entity is programmed with ethical principles and that it is continually monitored and updated to ensure that it is operating within those principles. We also need to ensure that the entity is transparent in its decision-making so that we can understand how it is operating and intervene if necessary. Those are great points. It seems like we need to ensure that these entities are designed in a way that is both ethical and aligned with our values and that we have systems in place to monitor and regulate their behavior. It will be interesting to see how we can continue to advance AI while also ensuring that it operates in an ethical manner. So did I get a good answer when I asked? Yeah, because I got the discussion. Whereas here, when they asked it, they literally got that. I'm not able to give that. And then the morality is questionable, right? Anyways. Note, for all the seemingly sophisticated thought and language, the moral indifference born of intelligence. Here, ChatGPT exhibits something like the banality of evil. Banality. What's banality mean? Triteness, platitude. Corniness. Okay. So, like, the corniness of evil. Plagiarism and apathy and... Like, why do you gotta use so many big words, dude? Within linguistics, obviative third person is a grammatical person clusivity marking that distinguishes a non-salient third person referent from a more salient third person referent in a given discourse context. So if like three people are talking and one is a part of the conversation and one is and like the fourth person is not, we are like switching from the third to the fourth, I think, maybe. Plagiarism and apathy and obviation. They think they are this fourth person, maybe. It summarizes the standard arguments in the literature by a kind of super autocomplete. Refuses to take a stand on anything, pleads not merely ignorance but lack of intelligence, and ultimately offers a just following orders defense, shifting responsibility to its creators. In short, ChatGPT and its brethren are constitutionally unable to balance creativity with constraint. They either overgenerate, producing both truths and falsehoods, endorsing ethical and unethical decisions alike, or undergenerate, exhibiting non-commitment to any decisions and indifference to consequences. Given the amorality, faux science, and linguistic incompetence of these systems, we can only laugh or cry at their popularity. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like some of these mindsets might not be the most helpful, because I want to just take a second. I have a ChatGPT thing. We use it all the time. I literally got a thing for estrogel here. We're all talking to this bot all the time, and it's giving us valuable information. But yeah, so that's really all I think I have for now. I do want to do that Twitter thread, but maybe I'll save that. And I want to edit the video as well. So I'm going to edit a little bit. I don't want to talk anymore. My mouth is tired. So I love you. Goodbye.